today's class, I think, is going to be maybe the third class in which we talk about some of the spiritual principles and systems that came out of the Bantu Congo. As you remember, the first class we did was on Bantu Congo cosmology. Then we did another class after that on the Kindesi system. So this is by the same author, Baba Fukuyama. And in this work, it's called The Self-Healing Power in Therapy, Old Teachings from Africa. Okay? And in this book, he builds on some of the findings in his previous books about not only how Africans organize their societies, but what are the spiritual principles behind it and how that reflects in their everyday behavior. So one of the first concepts that we want to focus in on in this particular class is the concept called Kinenga. Kinenga, okay? This is the word, so we're going to write that down. Kinenga. Okay, and Kinenga, if we could simplify the definition, it means balance. So in the same way in ancient Kemet, they had a concept of balance. Do you remember the concept of balance in ancient Kemet? Ma'at, correct. So when we're thinking about the people of the Congo region, we want to remember they also have a concept of balance, and it was called Kinenga. I want to test you again. Do you remember what the concept of balance was for the Yoruba? Start with the I. Iwapele. Remember that? Balanced character? Okay, Iwapele. So every African, that's a cultural unity or a cultural commonality between African populations. Every time you look at an African population, they'll have a concept of balance. And that concept of balance not only tells them how to relate to one another, but it tells them how to relate to nature, how to relate to God, and how to relate to everything else around them. So let's write our definition of Kinenga. And this definition comes from Baba Fukuyama, and he defines Kinenga as the concept of balance all right? So Kinenga is the concept of balance, which is manifested through the safeguarding of self-healing power, okay? Through the safeguarding of self-healing power. Okay, so this concept, self-healing power, this is central to the Kinenga concept, because without this self-healing power, there is no order in the cosmos. Not just within yourself, but in the environment. And the word that the Congolese people use for self-healing power is this: Ngolo. Ngolo. And Ngolo just translates as energy, okay? And the energy that you have as an individual, this comes from your genetic package, meaning who your parents are. And not just who your parents are, but it also comes from your ancestors. So whenever we're looking at a person's Ngolo, we're saying we're looking at that person's ability to heal themselves by relying on those internal resources that was given to them by their ancestors and their heritage. And whenever you have a people who rely on things outside of their ancestors and heritage, that's a person who is weak. I mean, this is a person without the power to heal themselves, okay? So as Africans, we have to remember when we're talking about the healing arts or the art of healing, we want to remember that this is an art that is at its height when we rely on ourselves, meaning the traditions and the cultures and the practices and the rituals that our ancestors gave us. And I'm going to talk about this later in the class, because when you're talking about your Ngolo, it's a combination of what happened to you before birth, meaning when you was in your mother's womb, and it's a combination of what happened after you was born. But before we get into that, let's go into another picture, symbol that you're familiar with. So do you remember what this is called? The Kinga. The Kinga cosmogram, right? And do you remember the 4 stages of the Kinga cosmogram? Like, what is the first? What is this stage called? Kala.
Two Kala.
Good.
Musoni.
Musoni is here. Good. And what is this called? The Luvimba. Luvimba. Okay. Luvimba. Do you remember the colors associated with each stage?
Black,
Good.
red, white, and yellow.
Good. black, red, white, and yellow. Now, in the Congolese spiritual system, each one of these stages and the colors that they're associated with matches a particular point in the formation of the universe and the formation of the human being. Okay? Because remember, the universe and the human being are connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is that called? What did they call that in Kemet when they say the universe and the human being is connected?
Law of correspondence.
Correct. Law of correspondence. As above, so below. So already we're seeing what? A lot of overlap, right? Between what they did in ancient Kemet and what they're doing in the Bantu Congo. Because remember, the ancestors of the people in Kemet came from what? Inner Africa, meaning the Congo region. So this is stuff to pay attention to when we're trying to have a cultural analysis. We're saying we're looking at two different cultures and we're trying to see how those cultures compare to one another. All right? So when you're looking at the formation of the universe, this is where they start, here in the Musoni stage. So we're going to put 1 there. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Now in the Congo cosmology, it's very important because it's different from what we're used to. So in the Bible, they say that God created Adam and Eve, and then he gave Adam and Eve dominion over the creatures of the earth, right? Mm-hmm. Well, in the Congolese cosmology, they say that before there were animals, there were plants, okay? Mm-hmm. So, and they said, and they started out at the Musoni stage, okay? So at the Musoni stage, they call this the sunrise, or actually they call it the midnight. This is the depth of the earth. So they call this is midnight. This is where everything came out of, and it's called the state of perfection, okay? So, and then in stage 2, and it's the birth of the earth, okay? This is the birth of the earth, okay? Earth is born. So before you have human beings, before you have animals, before you have plants, you have the birth of the earth. And that happens at this stage, the yellow stage, the Musoni stage. The second stage, which is the sunrise stage, here, what you have is the birth of plant life and cells. You know what they mean by cells? So cells, like in microbiology, like if you put something under a microscope, what do you see? Cells, right? So here we have in Congo cosmology is scientific. They're not just saying things just popped in out of nowhere. They're saying on a cellular level, things so small you can't see it with your naked eye. That came about in the Kala stage, at the black stage. So first you had the birth of the earth, then you had the birth of plant life and cells. The next stage, the third stage, was the animals, okay? Animals and birds, okay?
What time of day is this?
This is called the zenith, or this is when the sun is at its height, or you would call it noon time. When the sun is directly above, at its highest point of ascent. Because you know when the sun, you're looking at it in the sky, it looks like it's ascending up, and then it descends. Well, this is the part where it's at its height, and they call that the zenith, okay? So we can write that word, zenith, which means the peak. So here's where the sun is at its zenith, okay? And this is where animals and birds were born, okay? So let's go rewind. So first you had the earth, then you had plant life and cells, then you had animals and birds, and in the November stage, this is called the sunset, okay? This is when the sun is descending.
What do you think came there, Mikey?
And what do you think came at the November stage?
Nighttime?
No, I'm talking about, so here came the earth, here came plant life and cells, here came animals and birds. So what came in the November stage? What's missing? What's missing from this life cycle?
Darkness?
That's in this room right now. You're looking at one. Humans.
Oh.
Humans, okay? Human beings. Now, or as the Congolese call them, muntu. That's the Congolese word for human, muntu.
That's in Kiswahili too.
So muntu. Okay? Now this is very important because remember, when I taught the other class, I said this is the stage of death, right? So why would they say that humans came about at the stage of death? And Kia Buseki talks about it. He says because when humans came to earth, what also came to earth was death and life-destroying technologies. Okay? So he says what's happening right now is we're in this stage. Meaning we're in the stage where civilizations are starting to fall, but not to be annihilated completely, but to be reborn again, anew in the yellow stage, which means that's how civilizations happen. They grow and then they fall. That's the rhythm of life, okay? And I'll read you out what he says exactly, because this tells you, it kind of puts in perspective what we're going through right now. We're in the November stage, meaning the sun of life on the world is going down, but it's preparing us for a new order, okay? So let's see what he says. He says, all right. He says, civilization destroys itself to yield a new period of Musoni sun, the re-beginning or restart of the dingo of life, growth and change in history. This is the Bwamubulu Dianzinga, falling in the spiritual hole or the dark hole of events, i.e. falling in the burning radiations of Musoni, the purifying power for change. So is any human life in its individual self-healing power, as we will see next. So basically he's saying in the same way that civilizations rise and fall, that happens to human beings. Meaning when you undergo your transformation, it's going to be necessary for certain parts of you to die off, okay? And that's why they will always represent this with white. Like what happens when you burn the coal? When you put the fire out, what color is it? White. Yeah, see,
Sometimes gray.
Sometimes gray, correct. It's either white or gray. And that grayish white color in the Congolese system, that symbolizes death. And that's why when you go through initiation rituals, they'll sometimes cover you in white chalk, because they're saying this part of you is dying and a new person is coming into being. So at the same time, these civilizations in the West, like America, so-called civilizations in Europe and America are dying, we have to take joy in that, because through those civilizations dying, African civilizations are being born right here, right now. So that's one thing you got to remember when you're looking at the life cycle of anything. Nothing ever dies. It only changes form over time. So we're exiting the Luvimba stage and we're going into the Musoni stage. All right?
That's why I say when you come into the new world twice, but like when you're born again, you don't really remember.
Or it's the saying that when a child is born, a parent is born too. You see? So meaning the end of your period as it's always a transformation from one state to another. So, or when a child is born in the physical world, he's dying to the spiritual world. And when he dies to the physical world, he's being born in the spiritual world. And that goes back to this, because remember, this and this, that's a separation. This space here, above, and you remember what this line was called?
The Kinenga.
Yeah, Kalunga, right?
Yeah.
Kalunga line. So this is the physical world. And this is the spiritual world. Or another way of putting it, this is what before you're born, when you're in your mother's womb. This is after you're out. You see, so you see how they capture in the entirety of the human experience, not just what you experience physically, but also the spiritual. All right. So now we're about to get into something more interesting, and that's self-development. So, because we was talking about self-healing power, and we have to ask ourselves, so how do you cultivate self-healing power? So at the core of cultivating self-healing power is a list of what I call questions. And these are questions of identity that if you find the answers to these questions, they're going to reveal things about yourself that you could take with you throughout your life. And a lot of these things are things that me and your mom focus in on with you. And I don't know if you, at this moment, understand the gravity of it, but I think when you look at it in this context, it'll come out in a more powerful way. So let's write these questions. So the questions are, the first question is, what are...
Write it down. Sorry, you want me to write it down on paper?
Yeah, you can. So the first question is, what are we taught? Okay? What are we taught? Okay? The second question is, or I should put, we are what we are taught. That's a better way of putting it. Not what are we taught, but we are what we are taught. Okay?
Dang, I already wrote it.
Yeah, if you just cross it out and write it over. So the first point is we are what we are taught. And this is an affirmation. So we are what we are taught. And you see this a lot. Sometimes you will see children misbehaving. They'll be like, who taught you to do that? You see, they're basically saying whatever behavior you're showing is because somebody taught you that. So we are what we are taught. Okay? The second statement is we are what we see. I'm going to focus in on that some more after I write the other ones because this is very important in the media culture. Number 3, we are what we eat.
Yeah, I heard that saying before.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, we are what we believe in. So when you take these 4 questions and you begin to meditate on them, what you get is a portrait of who you are. And this portrait is developed, though, between the before birth and after birth stages. So when you're in your mother's womb, it's always important to ask, what genetically are my parents transmitting to me? Not just in terms of how I look and how my behaviors, but spiritually. What was the state of my parents when I was conceived? Meaning when I was first brought into existence in the womb, what was the state of things? So what my parents genetically poured into me? What is my ngolo? Okay? So let's ask that. When you're in the womb, what is my ngolo? And secondly, before the birth, you want to say what my mother added to my ngolo in the womb. Meaning, what was your mother eating? What was she drinking? What was she thinking? What was she feeling? What kind of experiences was she going through? All that has an impact on you throughout your life before you were born. Okay? So you want to put that, what my mother added to my ngolo. And this is what I talk about in the father trimester, about how when a mother is pregnant, she has to make sure that she's eating right and she's in a peaceful, safe environment. Because if she isn't, all the stress that she has is going to be transferred to the baby. So for example, they say when a woman is stressed in the 3rd trimester, the baby has asthma. Okay? So the baby cannot have asthma if the mother is calm. And Africans understood that. And that's why they created societies that surrounded mothers and kept them in a position of prestige and protection, because they said if we don't protect these mothers, the seed that this mother gives to the community is not going to produce what we need to produce to advance as a people. Okay, so they was always focused on what is the quality of the seed, but in order to ensure the quality of the seed, they had to take care of the mother. All right, so you have to say what my mother added to my ngolo. Okay? Then after birth. So those are the 2 things before birth. After birth, you have to ask, what was I fed or ate? So this goes to, was I breastfed or was I formula fed? You see, that's crucial. What was I fed? Because if you're breastfed, you're going to be bonded to your mother, you're going to have brain development, you're going to have nutrition, you're going to have the temperament, you're going to have the emotion, you're going to have the culture. All of that gets transmitted through breast milk. Whereas if you was given formula milk, all you're getting is constipation, you're getting risk factors for obesity, you're developing eating disorders. You see, all this stuff happens from formula milk.
Or
so
breast milk, or pumped breast milk.
Or pumped breast milk. You see, because when you take the milk from the nipple of the mother, what you're doing is you're despiritualizing the milk and you're taking all of the immune benefits from that milk. And actually, Fukuyama, he points out that one of the deviations, as he puts it, in a society that is headed towards destruction is that they start to bottle feed their babies. Okay? He says when you have a society that bottle feeds its babies, they're deviating from the type of Kinenga, the balance that's needed for societies to survive. They're advancing towards death. Okay? So that's whenever you see babies fed on bottles in a society and no one's drinking from the nipple of the mother, That's showing that they've somehow separated from their core essence as a people. All right, so what was I fed? The second one is, what do I see? Okay, again, see, we are what we see. What you see is very important. Now, I'm gonna read that part out at length because I think what that shows is that media shapes the mind. Okay, it's not just entertainment; it's shaping everything about you. So what you see is just as important as what you eat, because once it's imprinted in your mind, it's going to be there forever, and you're going to perpetuate whatever that image was in your life unconsciously through your behaviors. Okay. So you want to make sure you're very protective. You're protecting your eyes so that certain things can't enter your brain. Okay? So what did I see? All right. The next one is, what did I learn or hear? I'll just put what I hear. And that goes to music. You know, we don't let you listen to just anything, because what you hear is going to affect your brain, just like what you see is going to affect your brain. All right? Number 4, what I believe.
And so basically all the things are on the other side.
Yes, it's more than that, but yes, this is a condensed version of this. Okay? But yeah, it's more. So what I believe. What do I do? That means, are you a person of your word? Do you just talk or do you act? You see? Because if you just talk, what that's doing is you're deceiving people in terms of your intent. So how you make your intent pure is that you act in ways that reflect your intent. So you shouldn't have to say, I believe and I care. I believe in caring for people. No, you care for people, and people will say he cares about people. So you want to always make sure your actions come before your words. You want to prioritize that first. Then what you say would be more respectable, because people will say you have a record of balanced behavior. You know, that shows that you meant what you said. Okay, so what do I do? And then lastly, what is around me? And this goes to what type of society you live in. What is around me? Okay. So I'm going to just read now the part about what I see, and I want you to think about it, because when you hear this, it's going to tell you a lot about why, as parents, we're responsible for controlling what enters our children's brains in terms of visual media. Because when we say, oh, that's just entertainment and we just want you to consume whatever other children consume, then what happens is that child becomes bond damaged, meaning they become disconnected from their culture, they become imbalanced, and they start to engage in behaviors that are going to accelerate their death, you know, as opposed to their life. All right? So this is what he says under the header, we are what we see. Okay? He says, the Kongo people say, Meso Kantungungun Lumbuko. One cannot erect a fence before one's eyes. Eyes see everything appearing before them. Like a camera, eyes do not reason. They just picture everything. Large and small things, ugly and beautiful things, funny and frightening things, lovely as well as ugly things, can all be printed on our retina. And we see what we say we see. People, cities, nature, birds, animals, machines, accidents, wars, colors, and movies. To the eyes, they are all just pictures, but not as so for the mind, as we shall see. Let us ask ourselves, what is seeing? Seeing is feeding more directly one's mind. So hear that? Seeing is feeding your mind. Okay, meaning everything you see, imagine is food, and you're putting it in your mind. Now you have to ask, the stuff I see, is this something, if I could transform that into a food, would I eat it? So meaning, if I'm watching SpongeBob SquarePants, and I say, what's the food equivalent of that? Do you think that's going to help you, or is it going to harm you?
Harm me.
It's going to harm you, so why watch it? But what happens is we watch things, and we think because we're not physically eating that thing, because we can't see it and hold it and smell it, is therefore not that important. We don't have to be as guarded in terms of what we watch as what we eat. But that's not true, and that's what the Africans understood. So let's see what else he says. He says, it is printed in a way that is almost ineffaceable. Ineffaceable means once you see something, you can't erase it. It's in your mind forever. Now it's just up to you what to do with that. You might not be conscious of it, but what happens is it sinks into your subconscious mind. Okay, so it says it is printed in a way that is almost ineffaceable. What one sees in the mind, especially when what is seen is on a stage, a play, a show, a commercial, a movie. All these movies and shows become in modern time the biggest schools open to all for culture and knowledge sharing, but also to terrorism training. You see? He says you can train a person to be a terrorist through media. So, for example, in America, when you turn on CNN and you see American soldiers blowing up whole cities across the world, they're training American citizens to be terrorists. They're training them to glorify murder and psychopathic behavior. And I'm saying, as responsible parents, we saying we want to remove you from a society that televises mass murder as though it's something to be glorified. Because we don't want you to be a mass murderer. You see? Let's see what else he says. It trains you for terrorism. In addition, this is Fukuyama. He says, because seeing is printing images in the mind that will be perpetually reproduced throughout life. Perpetually reproduced. That means forever. You're going to be forever living whatever that message was you saw on TV. Perpetually reproduced throughout life. The individual will always unconsciously take the side of the hero in the show or movie. A young boy who feeds his mind with movies related to rapes and other criminal activities may be influenced to commit a rape and a related criminal act. What we see can strengthen or weaken our individual power to decide quickly and correctly. What we see in a form other than in a natural way stands and forms compact walls around us. These walls prevent us from seeing and understanding the reality of life. One immediately loses the sense of his being. One will act according to those images that surround one. You see? So you're going to act in accordance with the images that surround you. Now, if you look out the window, what type of images you see?
Trees.
Trees.
Clouds.
Mm-hmm.
Rooftops.
Right. Now, if we was in Atlanta right now, you would look out that window and you would see billboards. That's why we moved here. You become what the image are that surrounds you. Look throughout this room. What images do you see? Mm-hmm. What images do you see?
Africa.
You see?
Incense.
See, what images do you see?
Rainbow. Magic numbers. Dramatic words.
So you see, when we put images around you, it's not for decoration. Every image we put in your space, we put those images there because we're saying this is who we want you to become. When you go into your room, what images are on the wall?
My drawing.
Your drawings. See? We want you to become you. When you're watching your enemy's programming, you're becoming them. There's no quicker way to become your enemy than to watch their programming. You see? And that's what Fukuyama was saying. He says, I'll repeat, he says, one will act according to those images that surround one. So if you want to become something, you have to surround yourself with images that represent that thing you want to become. Mm-hmm. That's powerful. That's you taking ownership over your development. But when you allow other people to surround images with you, now they have control over you without you even knowing it. You might enjoy it, but they're enjoying it more. Put it that way. Whatever you're enjoying, if it's made by your enemy is enjoying it more than you are. You see? So that's just something to carry with you. All right, now the last thing I wanted to talk about is, because we've talked about the problems, but we always have to talk about the solutions. And these are solutions, meaning these are things that we can focus on to restore Kinenga, our balance in our societies and in our personal lives, okay? When we do these things. So have you written this already?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna erase this, and then I'm gonna write down line by line things that we can adopt in our lives to restore Kinenga. Okay?
I haven't wrote this thing yet.
This?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna erase that. I'm just gonna erase this.
I was gonna wait to be read on class first.
Okay.
Because it's hard for me to listen and learn.
That's cool. All right. So this is important. You don't have to, because since you live here, it's not like you have to write everything. What I'm about to write now, I'm gonna leave up. So I want you to listen though as I'm writing it, and we're gonna talk about briefly some of the points. So the first thing, and remember, this is about restoring your ngolo or your self-healing power. The first thing you want to do is research African teachings. So, for example, the teachings of Bantu Nations in Kinenga are the Bantu Congo systems. These are all teachings that enrich your life because they're reminding you from where you came and where you can go. Okay, so it's giving you a picture of the past and the future at the same time. So you want to research African teachings. The second thing you want to do is be sober in food and drink. Do you know what that sober means?
Yeah, like, doesn't that mean like you don't drink?
Yeah, you don't get drunk.
Yeah.
So if you're sober, that means you're moderate. You know how to do things within, reasonable bounds. Like you're not excessive, you're not gluttonous, you're not greedy. Or as they put it in the book, they said, don't eat like a pig and drink like a camel. You see, you eat like a human, drink like a human. Okay? So be sober in food and drink. All right? Third point, a pregnant woman must not smoke or take liquor during pregnancy. Okay? So I would just say protect health in pregnancy. And this is,
you have to say that.
yeah, I know.
Really bad.
Right, but that shows the effects of cultural invasion. When you invade a people culturally, you can completely distort and destroy things that they used to do for their self-preservation. They literally act in suicidal ways. And one of the suicidal ways that people act when they're oppressed is pregnant women smoke and drink.
While they're pregnant.
While they're pregnant, yes. There's women in America who do that. So, and that's just a form of invited suicide. They're saying their sense of kind of wholeness is so incomplete that they don't want to reproduce. They'll intentionally injure their child just so they won't have to nurture life. Okay? So that's something we have to watch out for. Number 4, marriage. Okay? Meaning you always want to be in favor of marriage, you want to celebrate marriage, you want to defend marriage. Because when marital bonds start to break apart, that's when the basic unit of the family starts to break apart. Because out of marriage is what you get nations, okay? So because in Africa, whenever people got married, it was between two communities. So the community would even select the spouses. So the husband's family would choose his wife for him, and the wife's family would choose her husband for her. And the two families would meet together, they'd have negotiations, and if both people was initiated, meaning if they went through the proper rites of passage and they was solid in their responsibilities, then you had a marriage. Because for Africans, they said the worst thing that could come out of a marriage is they don't produce a seed that's valuable to the community. That was the whole point of marriage. Produce a seed, a child, that was valuable to the community. And if you don't do that, your marriage is not legitimate. It's not a real marriage. So marriage is very key in the social health of the society. You have to have strong African marriages, heterosexual, no gay stuff, strong African marriages. All right, have to say that.
Yeah, the fact that you have to say
no
that.
gay stuff. Number 5, earthly environment. Okay, and I'm gonna read this out because it's not entirely clear what he means. But if you listen to it, this is basically what me and your mom did in coming to Africa. And it basically says when you're trying to achieve balance in your life, you can't do it without the cooperation of the environment. Meaning you can't live in a chaotic, reckless, crazy environment and then expect to be balanced within. For you to be balanced within, the people in your environment also have to be balanced.
That's also why I think it's weird that people in the U.S. they light sage in their house to get rid of the evil spirits.
Yeah, I know.
Even though you live in an evil
right.
society.
See, they minimize the evil. They say the evil only exists in their house. No, the evil is in the country. So unless you plan on walking from New York to California with your sage, the evil is not going to get out. Now, if I can find somebody to run from New York to California with sage, that might get rid of the evil. But I don't know nobody who can do that. So.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't bet on the sage. I think a plane can get you out of evil a lot quicker than sage.
Yeah, a lot easier.
2 plane tickets and the right mind can get the evil away. All right. So for under earthly environment, they put parents must know if the environment in which they are raising their children is safe. Since the earthly environment can affect the biological environment as well as the environment root of the child, Society and its government must take full responsibility for keeping the earthly environment clean, safe, and free of chemical or toxic contamination. If these precautions cannot be provided, parents may leave the environment for the safety of their children. See, say if you have a society, and he's talking about environmental pollution. He's saying if you live in a society that's heavily polluted, the parents have a responsibility to remove their children from that society for their own safety. Now, America is the biggest polluter per capita on earth. Okay? So that means every parent who is raising their child in America is being negligent in their African responsibility. We're not talking about Western responsibilities. They're African responsibilities to ensure a safe earthly environment for their children by removing them from America. And that's why we go so hard. Get out of America, because we have an obligation. This is not a preference, it's an obligation. Number 6, learning. That's what we're doing right now. You have to make learning not just something you do in the classroom, but something you do every day at all times in all situations.
But you learn for to be a sadulu.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. You said it's sadulu. And what is a sadulu?
Moving classroom.
A moving classroom, correct. And that sadulu philosophy, that was one that the Congolese people followed religiously, meaning they followed it consistently and at all times. And that was how they was able to come to ways of living that were so balanced, because they never passed on an opportunity to learn.
I feel like Bantu Congo people might have had some origins to do with the Muslims, because Muslims are very strict with their culture, and so it seems like Bantu Congo people are the same.
I agree. I think all religions, even the so-called Abrahamic religions, wouldn't exist without Africans. Because the Africans was the first people to develop a concept of God. You see, forget the religion, the concept of God, the concept of a divine creator originated in Africa. That means everything after that also is from Africa. So it's heavily distorted, but if you dig deep enough, you will find that African core. All right. So number 7, what we have is work. Okay. Work is very important, because through work, in a work ethic, what we do is we develop an esteem. And that means you develop a vision of your ability to contribute positively to the lives of others. So whenever you're doing your work, you want to make sure you're able to look at the people who look like you and their lives are better because of the work you do. That's why I write. So I write because I feel through my writing and my research and my study, I can impart information to my brothers and sisters that they can apply to their lives to make their lives better. Now, what that may be for you, that's for you to figure out. But make sure that you're serious about your work and you take pride in your work, meaning you never cut corners. You always want to do things the right way. All right? So that work is very important.
That's kind of how sometimes music and writing is you have to stick to your word. And it takes hard work to do it too.
Yes.
Producing a song, it may seem easy because it's on an album, but it's actually very complex. Because people get beats wrong all the time. Because I heard this song, what was it called? It was by Stevie Wonder, and the song was an accident, but it sounded like the real song.
That's interesting, but music is a lot like writing in the sense that music is about transmitting consciousness. That's what Fela Kuti did. If you want to study a musician who actually took their work seriously and not just as a form of entertainment or a commercial product, look at Fela Kuti. Okay, everything you need to know about music and the power of music in helping people, that can be seen in the life of Fela Kuti. All right, because in America, music is a commercial product, and that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a way to bring people together so that they can act more aggressively against those things that's threatening them. All right, it's a weapon. That's what Fela says. He says music is a weapon. All right. Number 8, learn to enjoy and sing your life. Okay, think of that. You were just talking about music. The best song you should sing is the song of your life. Learn to enjoy and sing your life. Okay? And that means even when it's going badly, you want to sing your life. Because songs have what? Harmony, right?
Yeah, extreme harmony.
They have harmony, and harmony means order. Meaning, if you know how to look at the hardships in your life within a harmonic structure, meaning how this fits into my life story, then you'll be able to get through But if you just look at the struggle as some type of interference that's destroying your song, then you may not recover. You see? So you have to remember, think of your song, think of your life as a song. And the struggles and the hardships you go through, this is just a part of the song. But the beat is going to change later on.
That's
But
right.
you have to remember that your life is a song.
That's why Phelan made that song when they killed his mother.
Mhm.
We'd be like, how did he make a
Yes,
song
exactly.
after they killed his mother?
They threw his mother out the window and killed him. Phelan could have easily said, you know what, this music making is too dangerous, I'm done.
Right.
They killed my mother. I think they tried to kill me. They raided my whole compound, ran all my wives away. I don't want to do this anymore. He said, no, I'm going to make another song. And then I'm going to take her casket into the Golden Barracks, and I'm going to lay it in front of the house to tell them how militantly I'm committed to this music. You see? That's bravery, that's courage, that's Kinenga, that's balance. Because he understood that tragedy added to his life. It didn't take from his life.
That's a lot of courage.
A lot of
Like,
courage.
I would not do that. Like, not even me.
So let me read what they said here, because this is powerful too. He says, if you begin to appreciate life more than gold, chromium, and cobalt, only then will you begin to fight for life and keep it strong, healthy, and universal. You see? Value your life more than you value anything else. And when you do that, you know, you'll achieve that balance. You'll achieve that what is it? That Kinenga, that ma'at. It'll be throughout your life. All right? Number 9, we're almost done, is ask. And this is just a matter of having humility. So meaning the way, especially for black people in the West, they live lives that are like overwhelmed with confusion, mixed messages, lies, deceit, just insanity. So it's understandable to be ignorant about a lot of these things that Africans have made normal. So it's our job as Africans who are re-Africanizing ourselves to ask others to help us when we're having difficulty getting through things in life. Because by asking others, you're asking yourself, you see? So there's no shame in asking. People who are too prideful, they don't want to ask. People who are individualistic, who want to take all the glory for themselves, they don't want to ask. And those are the people who end up burning out. So you want to make sure you value the people who know, you want to value your elders, and you want to value the ngangas, the specialists, you know, in your community, the ones who have lived enough life, who've been through that Tukala stage, and right before they leave, they can give you the wisdom you need so that you can make it to your elderhood. All right? And then lastly, and this is connected with 9, is tradition. And tradition is important because without tradition, you have no future. You know, tradition is like the kind of blueprint. It tells you how to build, it tells you how to defend, and it tells you how to live. You know, so you have to consistently study your tradition as if your life depends on it, because your life does depend on it. Okay? Not as if your life depends on it. So that's your immune system. You get your culture based on your literacy about the traditions from which you come and how you can live those traditions in a more fuller way than the people who came before you.
Right.